Assassin's Promise by Thomas Woodward, Chapter 20. I backed away from Stannon as he stood over me, moving towards the far wall. I did not waste breath trying to determine his intent. I did not break my gaze from his one dark eye. It moved, searching, as he looked over the room. Standing up in a guarded position, I hesitated before speaking. "I have done what you asked," I started. "What I commanded of you." Stannon's voice was clear and cold. "Did you expect praise?" "No, you know better than that." With a quick move, Stannon reached forward and took the pouch before meticulously checking the contents. He checked a second time afterwards. "You will learn that caution pervades my profession. It is the single most important attribute you can attain. Trust nothing and no one, and never, ever trust me." With a short bark of a laugh, Stannon moved towards the door. "We leave now." That was all. I hurried to follow, my hunger momentarily forgotten. I felt the weakness through my frame but dared not reveal it. The tremors were still there, waiting for me with each step. They had lessened a bit, but the chills of cold still came and went, with the fever clearly had not broken yet. My gaze held fast, though. If I survived the sickness, I would need all my strength I could muster. Stannon moved over to me, cutting off a rind of one of the cheeses I had bought. He held his hand out for only a moment. It was all I needed. I grabbed at it hungrily. Shame was a luxury for those who had never known starvation. I thought only of survival. As we crossed the rotting door frame at the front of the building and moved towards the street, I thought wearily of the exhaustion that had overtaken me on our journey past Sky Peak. I would need a horse. If I were to walk again through the desert, I may not survive this time. I would steal if I had to. I would do anything to survive. My mind felt like a hollow thing. Heat rushed in to replace the dank smells of the crumbling tavern we had left behind. Heat and horse dung. I spotted the stable as we approached. A stable boy stood to one side of the building, his eyes dark and unreadable under his hat. Kane moved brusquely, not waiting for the stable hand to grant him entry. As we moved into the stable, the boy rushed in after us, letting loose a curse at our backs. In a movement that I could barely follow with my eyes, Stannon spun with blazing speed, slicing out the throat of the boy in a single fluid movement. The grace of Stannon's form belied the deadly result he left falling to the ground. The boy halted mid-sentence, gurgling, trying frantically to breathe. He crushed his hands to his windpipe, a horrible sound emitting from him, as his skin began to wither and age. With terrible fascination, I saw it happen in no more than a span of moments. The blade that Stannon held seemed to warp reality. It pulsed and glowed with a mixture of shadow and pale light. I could not look away. Finally, he smashed the blade back into its sheath. I stood blinking in the gloom of the stable. What had happened? I felt odd. My gaze drifted down to the earth, where a fine gray powder coated the ground, in a circle around a heap of worn clothes. I held my hand to my head, unsure of where I was and what had transpired. Wiping the heat and sweat away for a moment, I looked back at Stannon. He stood there, unmoving, a grim smile spreading over his face. I felt a small chill pass through me.